Hi, welcome to this new series I'm starting calling Mission Rewatch. Yeah, that's what it says. I'm basically just going to be rewatching things I've already seen, seeing if I have a new take on them, stuff like that. Started with this show. It was made in 2012 to, I guess, profit off the hype of the Tron Legacy movie that came out 2 years before this. Made for Disney XD, and I watched it back when it came out in 2012. The episode starts off with knowledge that any person who's interested in Tron should know. Kevin Flynn creates a world that's supposed to be used for video games, develops it in something else, it's filled with programs, and is called the Grid. And if you know that, then you also know that eventually Tron, the hero that is supposed to defend the Grid, is killed. I say kill with quotations because you'll find out later. And the Grid is taken over by Kevin Flynn's clone, Clue. Clue is the villain of both films, but the show doesn't focus on him necessarily. They focus on his fledglings, the people who follow him, General Tessler, Paige, Dyson, other characters like that. Now into the episode. The episode starts off with Beck falling, then it cuts him being interrogated by a person who seems to work for Clue. He asks Beck who he is and where he's from. Beck is a normal program. He's a mechanic at this garage run by this old, I guess, black dude named Abel. He helps fix cars with a special device that all programs have. He has friends like Zed and Mara and Bodhi. But eventually, when Clue's army arrives to Argon City, which is where he's from, Bodhi tries to stand up to him while they're taking over. Then his friend Bodhi was killed. This motivated Beck to take on the mantle of Tron and then cut off the head of the statue that Clue had put in the middle of the city. This led to a chase where he's being chased by a bunch of Clue's generals, specifically one general named Paige, who was hell-bent on capturing him and was actually bested by him in a physical fight. Beck escapes to the Outlands where he is found by Clue's army. Oh no. Beck tries to escape in the helicopter that Paige arrived in, but eventually Paige chases Beck, and then eventually Beck tries to escape in the helicopter that Paige arrived in, but she's bested him, and then he crashed, and then he jumps out, lands in the middle of the Outlands. He jumps out, tries to parachute away. He lands in the middle of nowhere, and then Clue's army finds him, and he continues the chase until eventually this person who seems to be working for Clue captures him, and then it leads back into the beginning of the episode with his interrogation. Beck, while being interrogated about why he's doing what he's doing and being told that what he's doing is pointless and the city's in Clue's control, so why would you even try? He escapes, or he manages to get out of the handcuffs, and him and the person he's being interrogated by. Him and the person he's being interrogated by both have their identity disc to each other's throats, ready to kill one another. But then the person interrogating Beck reveals that he's not just some random guy. He doesn't even work for Clue. He is the Tron. Tron didn't die. If that's not obvious to you already, he's alive. And he's going to be training Beck to be the new Tron. Beck resists this because he thinks that he's just a simple mechanic and that he's way over his head, which he kind of is. Eventually he leaves. Tron tells him to go sleep on it. Beck manages to get back to Argon City to resume his normal life, but then Clue's army arrives looking for the person they are calling the Renegade Tron. They capture a group of mechanics from Beck's garage, or from Abel's. They capture a group of mechanics from Abel's garage because they arrive at Abel's garage. They ask for the Renegade to step up and reveal himself. No one does, so then they take a section of the mechanics from Abel's garage and says that and says, now you're volunteering for the games. Now you guys are volunteers for the games. Earlier in the episode, we see Beck playing the games with his friends, so I guess the disc battle games are like a sport that you can play like casually and not have to risk your life. But if you get put into the actual games, that's a life or death situation. So of course, all the programs are really scared and afraid of being taken. Also, of course, Beck's friends, specifically Zed and Mara, are taken as well. So he decides to don the Tron persona again and chase after him. Beck follows the train that they're all being transported on, but he comes into but then he has to fight a clue soldier who tries to kill him. Beck has the opportunity to kill this guy, but then he decides not to, cutting off the train cart that he's on. He opens it up and he realizes that it's the wrong cart and that his friends are not on that. So he has to go back to chasing the train. Eventually, he's able to crash the train by taking out one of the supports under the train. But then the guy who he was fighting earlier has the opportunity to kill Beck and decides not to, helping him release his friends. But victory doesn't last very long because Beck releases these soldiers, but Beck releases his friends, the mechanics, but this victory is short-lived when General Tester shows up, killing the guy who helped Beck and starting a fight with him. It was actually a really cool fight because General Tester has these like really interesting like light gloves that can stretch and give off this weird like light energy. It's a really interesting fight. They fight on scaffolding, and there's a really good exchange where he's like, "You can't save them all," and then Beck's like, "Watch me." And then the fight ends. Beck escapes. Of course he does. And then Beck finds Tron and they join one another. And Tron agrees to train Beck. No, Beck agrees to work with Tron and become the new Renegade. Renegade Tron. Tron gives him half of his disc, Beck attaches it to his own, turning himself into Tron. This episode did a really good job of introducing people who are not familiar with the story structure. Really helps us get a real idea of Beck and who he is and what drives him. The voice acting is great. The lead two characters are Beck and Tron, who are played by Elijah Wood, and Bruce Boxleitner, who is the actor who played Tron in both the original film and the sequel. He also does the voice of Kevin Flynn because, of course, Jeff Bridges, that's a lot of money. The animation is beautiful. It's this cool, like, CG 3D animated / like 2D cell shaded animation. It's a really unique way of doing this show, and because it's Disney, of course, they had the money to do it. I like the idea of Tron being a superhero, because in the films, Tron doesn't really get much highlight. It seems like he's a non-character, or at least in Tron Legacy. And the show makes him into a superhero, or at least he was a superhero before he was injured, and passing the mantle is like a superhero passing a mantle to another person. The show Tron Uprising, the show is going to be about an uprising, so this episode is supposed to just give us the catalyst for what the uprising is going to be about, which is probably just going to be Tron. Well, I know this because I've already watched the show, but it's going to be Tron, this new Tron, the Renegade Tron, Beck, trying to fight the system that has taken over Oregon City and get through Clue and his forces and eventually take him down. If you're watching it on Disney Plus, note the fact that the first episode of Tron isn't actually on Disney Plus, or at least I wasn't able to find it. It starts with the second episode for some reason, so if you want to watch the first episode, you're going to have to look for it online. It's called Beck's Beginning. But yeah, I really like this episode. Thanks for watching me ramble on about Tron, and Hope you subscribe. See you next time.